So I started the rendezvous on Wednesday with a joke about my zit that is currently taking over my entire forehead and actually caused a little bit of swelling underneath my eye because it's like connected all the way down here. It's a weird one. What I wasn't expecting though was one, the YouTube comment about it to be incredibly positive, but two, I made two TikToks this morning about like T1 and the new season of League of Legends coming out. And people genuinely were checking up on me to make sure that I'm okay and this isn't something worse. The reality is, every 6 months, I get a zit somewhere on my face that's pretty massive. And unfortunately, instead of it normally being like here or here or like here, it went right in the middle of my forehead. So yes, I'm okay, even if it hurts. You know what else is okay? Everything but viewership. Let's get into this week's episode of
Into the pit! Into the pit! Everyone get in here!
So before we get into this week's games, there's one topic that has been the talk of the town for the last few days and even like towards the end of last week, and that is six-man rosters and their new relevance in the LTA and global League of Legends. Now, if you've been following the LCK, probably the most popular, or I guess most talked about, not necessarily the most popular six-man roster in the world right now, is T1 themselves, the defending world champions Guma and Smash competing together for a starting spot on this roster. The handling of that six-man roster has been met with a lot of controversy, but this kind of gives me a chance to talk about it. But the key reason for this change in particular seems to be the champ pool of both individual players. They're both incredibly good by all means, but when you look at the champions that Smash is good at playing, it's the champions that are more in the meta right now rather than the ones that Guma played. Also, more importantly, at least to me, I think this is the big thing. When Doran was kind of like the backup option that T1 ended up going with because they weren't able to keep Zeus on the roster, it fundamentally changed how T1 would have to play because Doran's never going to be that guy that can play carry top laners and allow Guma to play the style of picks that he's kind of been relying on for a while, in addition to Fearless Draft limiting some of the options that Guma has available to him. So it made sense whenever Smash plays the meta champions that can play like the traditional hyper scaling, hyper carry champs, but then also the Kai'Sa and some of the other more like flex and niche picks that are more meta right now that Guma does not play himself. I think the Ezreal was the other one. He just suits T1 style better right now, at least from what I've watched in these games and what, like, when you think T1, when they're going to hit their peak, it seems like Smash is going to be that guy, but there's a chance that the meta eventually revolves back to the point where, yeah, you might need somebody like Guma. Now, do I think six-man rosters work long-term? Not necessarily as of yet. We have yet to see it like implemented at the highest level all that much. 9 times out of 10, it starts that way, but then eventually consolidates to one set group of people once a meta is decided. And that's what I think is going to happen here in the LTA as well. Weirdly enough, the two teams that are in the conversation for the six-man rosters happen to be the 1 to 3, 1 to 2, depending on who you ask, ranked teams in the league in Team Liquid and Flyquest. For Team Liquid, it's Umpty and APA, who are the subject of possibly seeing somebody else come in and see how they mesh with the team. For Flyquest, it's Blippo in the top lane, and Flyquest has officially signed Gakgos as their six-man in the top. Now, do I think it's going to be like a six-man roster whenever it comes time for Worlds or for these events? No. I think the biggest thing that you have available to you is that if the meta shifts away from you or changes going into a tournament or going into a split, you have an additional option who might be better on that particular patch. It's kind of a guessing game to a certain extent because by all means, you're not going to be able to beat Blippo on some of these not even off meta, but like the counter to the meta champions, like the Yorick. His Urgot is one that is infamous at this point. When you look at Team Liquid, APA, Aurelion Sol, Ziggs, some of these more utility roam, not necessarily like hyper carry in the mid lane style champions, yeah, those are their thing. But if the meta goes away from that and you need somebody to carry in the mid lane, yeah, maybe APA is not that guy. Yes, he showed that he can play Azir quite well this past weekend, at least against 100 Thieves. But what if you need some of those more control mage style champions with a much wider pool than just 1 or 2 champions? That's wherever having somebody else come in can be a good thing. I think ultimately you will end up playing with a set group of 5 depending on the patch. I think the patch would be the thing that ultimately changes it. But personally, I really like this. It was interesting listening to the dive. Well, not really interesting. I knew exactly what Meteos was going to be like speaking on and what his opinion was going to be because I was an Optic fan. So I got to watch whenever him and Dardoch were competing for that spot in Optic. And luckily there was never really a power balance issue because he was like consistently better. But he has talked a lot about how much he hates six-man rosters. Kobe and Azale are pretty much in the same boat, but personally, I like it. From an entertainment value, it's great to have the discussion points around who could start, who could not. It provides a lot of additional context that we wouldn't get to talk about otherwise whenever players don't stream, really, for the most part, and there's not all that much content to really talk about. And again, a patch could change pretty drastically and screw you over. The one that I'd be looking at a six-man for with TL, even though I know it's not going to happen, is Impact. Just let Impact be the GOAT of tanks and bruisers, and then let him train up somebody to play hyper carry champions, but playing against him so that you not even learn the mechanics, but just you have the exact counter. And if you could learn how to play against it with Impact, then great. But the question is, you then need somebody who understands that they're probably not going to have a starting spot on this Team Liquid roster, at least for this year, unless a meta comes in that really works for them. I don't know. I personally like the dynamic of more people on these teams, especially when we have less teams in the league and Fearless is becoming more important. Anyways, I think I've talked this one to death enough. Let's get to this week's matchups.
So we're going to use LTA Fantasy again this week to preview the matchups. But as always, if you're not a part of the Shy Knockers, our leaderboard on LTA Fantasy, be sure to join it. It's available in my Discord, which is linked down in the description below. We're 86 strong and counting. Maybe we can get to 100 before the end of the split. But yeah, I did not have the best week last week. I finished 25th, and the first place is 30 points ahead of me. Now, something I did not know about fantasy until this week is that how you do allows you to buy or sell the people on your team. Now, I already preemptively got rid of everybody just because I want to pick a new roster each and every week. But anybody that you had that rose in value actually increases the amount of budget that you're allowed to have. So going back to that leaderboard, Lunar in the top 5 are going to be able to buy pretty much anybody they want at any given time. It's very much like the stock market more than anything else. And once you get behind, you need to bet on some kind of no-name people to have a really good week in order to shoot yourself back up. The problem is that this week there's really no good team below the top 4 that you can pick that you're sitting here yeah, they could probably pull off the upset. Because looking at those bottom teams, so that would be Disguised, Dig, Shopify, and even though Lions at the top of the standings, I still think perception of them is still solidly 4th, 5th for now. Disguise plays C9 and plays 100 Thieves, so 2 of the top teams, that ain't happening. Dignitas plays Team Liquid and plays Cloud9. That ain't gonna happen. For Lion, they play Shopify and TL, so I mean, if you want to ride high on the Lion train, this is probably still the week to keep going on that front. But otherwise, this week is very much a matchup of favorites pounding on the lower teams, assuming everything goes to expectation, but you got to pick some upsets somewhere within this to try and be able to make up some points. And that's where I don't quite know. The only upset that I'd be looking at is probably Lion over Team Liquid on that Sunday matchup. But even then, I think this is one of those weeks where it's perfectly fine to take the favorite in every single matchup and just feel comfortable with it. So the question becomes, of the top 4 teams then, who do you see popping off? Well, 100 Thieves and Flyquest have to play each other, so you would assume that you would want to pick between C9 and TL, and C9 plays Disguise Dig, TL plays Lion Dig. I would say if you can take C9 players this week, you absolutely do, but that also depends on whether you think they're going to get you more points or not. The reason why I still have faith in 100 Thieves players is because the team gets bloody. Thanatos is a surprisingly low pick, and he's going to be going against Surdy, and I actually can't even remember who the top lane is for Disguise at the moment. I think Thanatos might be the sleeper pick this week. Let's give him his classic Renekton. I ain't touching the top 2 in Quid or Quad. There's no way, no chance in hell you could get me to pick them. But I will say, at least for jungle, if you're going to be taking Thanatos, in theory, you would assume that Blabber might do well with him, but I'm willing to step out of that bubble at least a little bit and say that Umpty is surprisingly going to have a good week. Am I really ballsy enough to pick Umpty? I think I am. Look, it's going to be the reverse Vi. That's my logic behind it. In mid lane, Saint was actually a very high performer. But because I'm picking somebody that's playing against Team Liquid, it doesn't make sense thematically to then also pick that same person. So I think I'm going to go with somebody entirely different on a different squad. I can't go with Loki because I already went with Thanatos, and you're going to split points between them all, so you need to try and make this work as best as you can. I feel like Ayla is still a high risk, high reward type pick, because in the case that he does play well in 100 Thieves, is able to beat Flyquest, then you get some additional points. But in the case he performs bad, it's really not that big of a deal. The point differential is not terrible. which means I've got 22 points to pick from when it comes to both ADC and mid. Oh, that's not good. All right, I'm still gonna. You know what? I'm gonna change it. I'm still gonna have faith in Lion. I feel like they're gonna be a good upset team for me to keep picking right now. So I'm gonna go with Odilan in jungle. Go with Sejuani. Why not? This actually frees up a lot of points. I feel like APA is gonna be a very high value pick this week. Given that I picked Thanatos over Loki, I don't want to do Loki in this particular situation. APA dropped a lot because he only got 9 points last week, but he's got an easy schedule. So I feel like it's a good rebound week for him. And if he wants to play that Azir and keep working on control mages, you go right ahead, brother. Which gives me 14 points to work with in bot lane, which is more than enough to pick somebody that's really freaking good and going to have a good week. My rule of not picking South teams is ultimately kind of screwing me here. And I don't think I want to pick both the carries from Team Liquid. You know what? I'll put my faith in Sven. Why not? The classic Ezreal. But this time he'll actually be able to use it without no Quicksilver Sash. I'm not the most confident in my team this week. It's kind of tough without picking LTA South teams, but I feel like C9, 100 Thieves, again, assuming they get the Flyquest upset, and then Lion possibly for the upset. Those are my teams. Lion's going to require the... Oh, wait, shit. I can't pick both. I can't pick a Lion player and a TL player. Oh, can I change jungle? Contracts went 1-1 and still had a good week. You know what? Screw it. I don't have any Flyquest players. Contracts it is. We'll give him the dog again. We'll give him the Fury. Why not? So, Thanatos, Contracts, APA, Sven, and Ayla. Feel like I'm pretty solid on this. Is there anywhere I can upgrade support, maybe? That'd be too many C9 players. Nope, I'm good.
Now, I think it would be wrong of me to not follow up on Monday's video where I bluntly said that we need the LCS back. And I think there's a lot of points that the community has brought up alongside this, in addition to the vocal support that has come from Doc Respawn, from Arsh, and others, like really stepping out of their way to say, yes, we really should get the LCS back. First and foremost, I'm well aware that the branding on its own, like isolated, just bringing back the LCS independently, does not do the thing that I need it to do, which is the branding plus additional marketing on top of that, plus a revamp of content, plus like all these different things that have to happen in tandem with each other in order for this to actually work. And even then, yeah, there's a chance that like this is a long shot and it won't work. There's a non-zero chance that NA truly is just like on a complete and utter deathbed, and there's nothing we can do really to save this because we've lost the interest of the general public. That even like, I know there are people that come out and say, oh, well, we just have to win internationally. Dude, we could win worlds this year, and I'll be honest with you, I don't think it changes all that much with us as a region. I really don't. I focused a lot on the Riot stuff, but the reality is obviously there is a portion that belongs with the players and teams, but I've harped on that so much and I wanted to isolate that video for the Riot things. I've talked about the player and team part here as well, which is that we currently get little to no content. I've used the 100 Thieves people as an example because it hits close to home and they're the players that I cheer for. But once again, I try to raid somebody after every single time I get done streaming. I still have yet to do, other than that one time of raiding Sniper. That's the only one that I've ever been able to do. There was a clip of Rush, who is a Counter-Strike player, that recently came out as he's talking about his days back in Optic. And one of the things that was told to him was, hey, you can do one of two things. You can either win or make content, but you better be doing one of them, because if you try to do one but end up doing nothing in the process of it, then you've done nothing at all and you screw everybody. So I think like that's a mentality that I think we need to adopt from players and teams, which, to be fair, there are some teams that are putting out content. I don't want to like distinguish that, but it's more on the player front that like is more imperative when it comes to that particular quote. Players need to be more willing to do stuff and be more adaptive to modern content in order for us to actually have people to promote and brand and like have people that players and fans would want to tune in to watch. But regardless, those final viewership numbers, 68,000 average, I think was the number that they officially posted, or maybe less. I don't know. I'll have it up on the screen right now. Not good. I don't know if you can sustain a league as we have it right now with the salaries that we have, given that it's a 75K minimum for each individual player. So you're looking at about 3 million in player salaries minimum. You're looking at least $1 million in day-to-day production costs per split. So across 3 splits, that's what, $6 million? That's not including talent or like any other additional labor. Look, some of the most popular streamers in the world make a decent amount of money, but like I don't know anybody, to my understanding, that can make $6 million off of 60,000 concurrent viewers, whenever, to my understanding, and maybe I could be proven wrong by somebody on the broadcast, I don't think we convert on our sponsorships all that much. it's just not a good trend. It's a worrying trend for viewership, and we have to try and buck this in some way, shape, or form. And I hope that people continue to be outspoken on fixes and things that we can eventually like debate each other on, but come to an agreement on the next step forward. To me, that is rebranding back to the LCS and increasing our marketing and making sure that content is revamped entirely and making sure the players stream and all these things together. But if one cog in the wheel doesn't work, then there is a chance that unfortunately it's just done. And in the next 2 to 3 years, we'll just slowly bleed out, and it is what it is. I know this is a depressing end to this episode, but like I had to follow up on that video. Just know I'm gonna keep fighting for it. I'm never gonna sit here and like not address the problems as they come up because I'm annoyed at talking about them, or I don't want to discuss it anymore, because the reality is when there's a problem here, you do have to keep talking about it until it's solved. That doesn't mean you completely ignore the positive things going on, but it does mean you have to keep an eye on it and be very vocal until it's changed. That's it for me on the pit this week. Be sure to subscribe if you haven't already. Be sure to join the Discord for LTA Fantasy each and every week, and I will catch you on the next episode. Bye-bye.